Hey everyone, welcome to Getting Adrift. Today I want to talk to you about how I bought the boat and what was involved with the process. So, the three main components were searching for a boat, financing the boat, and insuring the boat. So, let's get to the first step, searching for the boat. So, first, I actually had to get permission from my wife. And I have to say, my wife is the best. We never say no to each other. And after explaining why I wanted a boat, she was on board, no pun intended. So originally, I had a plan that I presented to her, and I got approval for that plan. So I originally wanted to keep the boat on a trailer and keep that on our driveway, and then I would launch it every time I went. I probably would have needed a pickup truck, which was not exactly practical for me because I really am not a pickup truck kind of guy. Um, there was also not a whole lot of room on the driveway. We probably could have fit the boat, but there wouldn't have been room for cars or anything else, and that would have left us parking in the street. So everyone who I spoke to said you should probably just get a slip anyway because it's going to be difficult to launch the boat by yourself if you need to. And even just doing it every single time you go out, the more times you do it, the more can happen. So I would have been stuck not going out if I didn't have someone else to help me. And that's not why I got the boat. I want to use it, I want it to be convenient. So ultimately, I kind of had to tell my wife that I think a slip is going to be in the works. So, you know, oh well. Another thing, when I actually went to look at the boat and it was on the trailer out of water, I was really overwhelmed. It is big. And I didn't know that I would be even capable of taking that on the trailer and just taking it around. I have a Jeep Grand Cherokee and it is, I believe, rated around 6,100 pounds. So if you add the boat, trailer, gas, I probably would have been pushing that anyway. And then the boat ramps are very slippery. So I would not want to have to see my boat in the water with the boat and having both of them float away. So slip it is. Um, Once I started searching, I had to determine the size of the boat, the type of boat I wanted, and what my budget was. So the original budget was $20,000. And at the point when I told my wife $20,000, I had no idea what $20,000 would buy me. But I soon found out that it would be probably a 15 to 20-year-old boat. It would probably have 1,000 hours on the motor or more. And it would just be something that I would probably have to put money into immediately, which is not what I wanted. Um, so I also looked to just see what new boats were, and you're talking in excess of $100,000 for the size I wanted, and they depreciate very quickly. I think it's around 20% in the first year. So even if I had the money, it's probably not the route I would have taken. So because I'm poor, there's no way I'm buying a brand new boat. So I started looking around boats around $50,000 or so, figuring that there would be some wiggle room to negotiate. And I started looking on Facebook, Marketplace, boats.com, Boat Trader, local marinas, and see what their used inventory was. And I kind of went from there. So at that point, I was looking morning, noon, afternoon, night, in the middle of the night for pretty much 3 months or so. And I was just going crazy with looking. But I finally found one boat to look at that was worth looking. And it was a 2007 Cuddy cabin, and I thought I wanted a cuddy cabin because I thought it would be cool to sleep on the boat and then just hang out if it got too hot or whatever. And I soon found out that that was not what I was looking for. My friend who did have a cuddy cabin said all he ever did was throw things in there, and it was basically a storage unit. So a size boat like that, you'd get knocked around with the waves, and it didn't sound like anyone would actually spend any time down there. And my wife kind of agreed that that's not something that we would really want to do. So I started concentrating on center consoles. So I figured the size would probably be around 20 to 25 feet or so. 20 was probably pushing it on the small end, but 22 to 25 would probably suit my needs. I did find a 2017 Sea Fox. It was a 226 Commander, and it had about 250 hours on the Yamaha 175 motor. So immediately I thought that the engine might be a little small. The person who currently owned the boat has himself and his father. They go out fishing, they don't go out very far, and it seemed to suit his needs. But if I wanted myself, my wife, my kids, a friend or two, it probably wouldn't have gotten on plane, and I wouldn't have been happy that it just wasn't powerful enough to actually move. So I did make an offer on it, and I did have a sea trial as part of the negotiation. So I would have found that out anyway, and I wouldn't have ended up buying something that wouldn't have been powerful enough for me. But it also didn't have a trailer, and adding a trailer would have been about $5,500. The asking price was 42,000. I offered 38, knowing that it's probably not going to be the best boat for me, but I can make it work. Ultimately, the buyer didn't accept the offer. So a day or so later, while I was contemplating whether or not I would counter and actually buy that boat, a friend who works at the Freedom Boat Club let me know that his club is selling a boat in the Point Pleasant marina. So he said that had a 2022 Key West 239 FS. So it's 23 feet, 9 inches, center console. It has about 65, not 65, but about 650 hours on a Yamaha 250 horsepower. And the asking price was 48,000. So I offered 40,000 and they just pretty much laughed at me. So they told me what they were willing to accept, and ultimately I agreed that that's not a bad price considering I saw boats very close, obviously with a few less hours, but probably 30 or $40,000 more than they were going to sell it to me for. Um, so I considered the number of hours on the motor, and some of the mitigating factors were that it was part of the fleet at Freedom Boat Club. They have a full time mechanic on duty, and these boats are meticulously maintained because they can't have an engine break in the middle of nowhere with members on the boat. They're going to get the engine ready for me for spring. It's already in winter storage that was paid for by them, so I really didn't have to worry about that. They're going to launch it whenever I'm ready, which will probably be the middle of April. And it's so far the guy gave me, he's the manager at the club, and he gave me his number. But I've been calling him, texting him, and he's given me great advice and things I'll need for the boat, things I don't need for the boat, things that I thought I needed, I really don't. So he's going to always be there for me. So that's a big plus when I have no clue. The other thing that was a positive is that even though I decided on getting a slip, a trailer in the future might be an option, and he always has them ready to sell. So that's something I could consider maybe at the end of the season and see what I want to do when it comes to winter storage. So the next step was, now we agreed on a price. How am I going to pay for the boat? So I started Googling boat financing, and I came up with a ton of options. And the first step was basically just clicking on something to get pre approval. So it was like a shortened version of a credit application. You put all your personal information in, salary, uh, own a home, this, that, blah, 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 blah. So after you filled in all that information, it would give you various terms and rates. So I saw rates that range from 8% to 20%, and then the terms were generally going to be 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. So after doing a little bit of searching and seeing what was out there, I went with New Coast. So at that point, they ran a hard credit check. They sent me a bunch of information to fill out, and then ultimately they came back with a offer from M&T, which happens to be my mortgage company. So I was comfortable with them. But after they came back with the rate and the terms, they said I might get a better rate having a co applicant. So at this point, I had no choice but to see what it was going to be with my wife, and actually fully disclose everything. There was no hiding anything from her at this point because she was going to see the loan documents and have to sign things. So I had to be upfront with everything, which was probably a good thing anyway, because you shouldn't lie to your wife. One other thing that NetCoast told me was if rates go down in a year or so, we could always refinance. So, not that the rate was horrible, but if it goes down even a point, it's a significant savings. Once we decided we were going with M&T, she sent me a bunch of closing documents for the seller and the buyer to provide. So, my wife and I had to provide our IDs. The seller had to provide a sales agreement, which my wife and I had to sign. The seller had to provide the boat title and registration. They also had to provide pictures of the PIN and the motor serial number. And then once I was finalized with everything, I had to give them an insurance binder with the finance company as loss payee. And then at that point, we received the closing documents. My wife and I went to a local bank branch, and we had all the loan doc pages signed and notarized. So we sent it back to them. We heard from them that Monday. It was like we got the loan docs on a Friday. They sent the overnight shipping information, and then we were told that it's pretty much a done deal. So at that point, they also wanted to see that I made the down payment to the seller. So I provided them proof I actually was able to do a wire transfer from my bank account on my own. And because I'm special at that bank, I didn't have to pay any fees. So the thing I liked about New Coast is their communication was great. I received emails, phone calls to let me know what was going on with the progress of the whole transaction. And then I would say that the total time between applying and closing was 10 calendar days, maybe even less. So after all that was done, I had to provide them with proof of insurance. So the next step was actually obtaining insurance. So they did ask me if I wanted to get a quote from New Coast internally. So I said, sure. So I gave them the information that they needed. But in the meantime, I also went online and looked at Progressive because that's what I had for my jet ski. And it was something that was very easy to do online and didn't really need any information and just do it. So when they came back with their quote, it happened to be from Progressive as well. But because their amount was a little higher for the same coverage, just because it's a little cheaper to do it on your own because you're doing it directly and they don't have to pay a commission to a broker, I just did it myself. And it was probably $50 or so. So it wasn't like a couple of dollars here and there. So then when I went on to get the insurance, there were a bunch of considerations. So some of those are liability, uninsured boaters, comprehensive, collision, medical, personal effects, fishing equipment, towing, and engine repairs. So if you combine liability, comprehensive, and collision, that probably made up 75% of the total policy premium. The other areas were all negligible. If you got one amount of coverage compared to the next, you're talking like $3 to $5. So I pretty much got everything. I think I have to go back and actually take off CTO because I actually got that through West Marine. So I'm going to go back and take that off, and that was about $30. So after all that, I sent the proof of insurance to the New Coast, and everything was done. They sent me back the closing docs the next day, and pretty much they said you own the boat. So at this point, some of the future considerations I have for the boat are where am I going to keep the boat? So as I said, I'm pretty much resigned to the fact that I'm going to put it at a slip in the marina. So I was looking at three different areas in Monmouth County that I was interested in. One was going to be Red Bank, Rumson, which is right down the Navesink River from Red Bank, closer to the bay. And then there was also Keyport because the slips were a little bit cheaper there. So I still have a lot of information on that. And then some other considerations are fishing equipment. I want to get poles, I want to get all the tackle, clamming equipment, crabbing equipment, and then I am on my way. So the Navesink River is great for crabbing. The bay is great for clamming. Go out in the ocean is right there, and I could pretty much buy, or not buy, but hopefully catch. I think my first fish is going to be my $47,000 fish. But the Raritan Bay, which is where I'm pretty much going to be, is one of the best striper grounds in the whole country. So I'm looking forward to that. And in the next few weeks, I'm going to the Atlantic City Boat Show. So I'm going to get a lot of content there. I'll be viewing a lot of different boats, accessories, things like that. So if you would like to, please like and subscribe. And in the comments, if there are any boats that you would like to see at the convention, let me know and I'll make sure that I do a little tour of those. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you.